Okay, good morning everybody and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Friday morning, Erev Shabbat Kodesh. As we are studying together Parashat Vayigash, and of course there's a lot to talk about. You could spend weeks and weeks on Parashat Vayigash, the encounter of Yosef and his brother Yehuda. And Yaakov Avinu finds out that Yosef is still alive actually after all, and he comes down and he's reunited with his son Yosef. And that's a whole topic in itself. And our Rabbi say that he said Shema when he saw Yosef, and what is that exactly? Again, a lot to talk about, but we didn't really get to do Rabbeinu Bahye this week. We're trying to stay consistent and true to our commitments. So today we're going to do a little bit, some nuggets from Rabbeinu Bahye. I don't know that there's a theme connecting all of these nuggets. We're not going to do all of Rabbeinu Bahye because that would take very long, and I know you all have to go some places to prepare for Shabbat. But we'll do with the few minutes that we have today. We'll spend some time discussing, maybe developing some of the ideas that Rabbeinu Bahye. Again, we're not reading some cute commentary. This is a serious commentary. This is a Rishon, Rabbeinu Bahye. What he has to say is important and has a lot of weight. So, Be'ezat Hashem, let's see what he wants to share with us on this week's Parashah. Of course, we begin with chapter 45, Pasuk 27. Okay, and let's read again together, chapter 45, Pasuk 27. Yosef HaTzadik, just to summarize, Yosef tells his brothers that he's alive. They cry, they reunite. He says, go back home, go tell dad that I am okay, and bring him quickly. But he tells them a line, interesting line. He says, Al tergezu badarech. What does that mean, Al tergezu badarech? Vayshalach et ehav vayelechu vayomer alehem al tergezu badarech. He tells them, don't, I don't know, what does it mean? Al tergezu, don't be agitated on the way. Rashi says, Al titasku bidvar halacha. Don't spend too much time on the road. Don't go too deep into halacha, because then you could lose the way. You get distracted. And Acham Ovadia has a true story. When he was a bachelor dating, he was dating his wife, who he eventually married, Margalit. And one of the dates, maybe it was the first date, they went for a walk. You know, where they're going to go? They're going to go to the movies? They went for a walk. Acham Ovadia. So he went for a walk, and she's talking to him, but his mind was elsewhere. He was stuck on a sugya in halacha. So, after she spoke, and she thought he was listening, so she says, so what do you think? And obviously, he had no idea what to say back. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, what were you saying? And of course, she was very turned off from that. When they got home, she told her father, I don't want to go out with him again. True story. The next day, Acham Ovadia, or whatever, the next time Acham Ovadia came back to the house, so I want to take her out again. The father's like, listen, Ovadia, I love you, and I'm happy to be your chavruta. But she's not looking for a chavruta. She's looking for a husband, and she doesn't want to go out again. She wasn't impressed last time. Acham Ovadia realized his mistake. He said, listen, I apologize. Give me another chance. To her luck, she did. And this time he paid attention, he focused, and he showed interest. Either way, sometimes a person gets caught in halacha, he could forget where he is, take the wrong exit. That's what happens to me all the time when I'm driving. I get too caught up in halacha, of course, and I take the wrong exit. I wish that's why I took the wrong exit. Usually it's for other reasons. But either way, Yosef says to his brothers, Al tirgezu badarech. Okay. Vaya'alu Mizrahi. Vayavu eretz Kenan el Yaakov avihim. They come up to Israel. They come to their father. Vayagidu lo lemor od Yosef hai. They tell their father, Yosef is still alive. V'chihu Moshe b'chol eretz Yisrael. And not only that, but he has ruled over Egypt, which is both to be understood literally and metaphorically, in the sense that Yosef is ruling over Egypt. Egypt is not ruling over him. Remember, according to one opinion, we saw that the whole episode of Yosef going down to Egypt was a test to see if his philosophy, his mentality of being able to inspire and influence the world without getting influenced. And so Yosef goes, and for 22 years he's down there, and he influences without getting influenced. Vechihu Moshel, he's ruling over Egypt. Egypt didn't get to him. Beautiful. V'yafog lebo, his heart pauses. He skips a beat. Lo ha'emin lahem. V'ydaberu elav et kol divrei Yosef. And so now the brothers repeat all of what Yosef said. Asher diber alehem. What did they repeat to their father? Well, according to the simple text, kol divrei Yosef, they repeated to their father everything from A to Z. The whole conversation that happened, meaning what Yosef said, what they said, seemingly according to this, they told their father of even the details of, how Yosef said to them, I'm your brother that you sold. And this is what the brothers relayed to Yaakov. Rashi says that he actually told the brothers his last Torah conversation, what they were learning last. Anyone know what they were learning last? Yaakov and his son Yosef, before he was sold. They were learning the sugya of, very good, Joe. They were learning the Egla Arufa, the calf, the decapitated calf. And he sends that message to his father. So his father said, wow, my son Yosef is alive. Again, that's twofold. He's alive physically if he knows what we learned last. There's an interesting story that Rabbi Friend on the Parsha brings, and I forget the details. But there was a certain fellow who ran away, leaving his wife in Aguna. And many years later, the guy comes back, with a beard. He wasn't easily recognizable. But he comes to the wife and says, I'm your husband. I'm sorry for running away for all these years, but here I am. And the wife, for some reason, didn't feel that this was actually her husband, but she couldn't point exactly why. She asked all the questions and he had all the answers, and it seemed like this was her husband, but for some reason she couldn't feel that it was her husband. So they went to the rabbi of the time. I think it was Rav Akiva Eger, the story is told with. Rav Akiva Eger brought him in. He asked him all the questions, and the guy had all the answers. It seems to be that this is the husband. He had all the facts straight. He knew the business. He knew where he lived. Everything. Finally, you ready? Listen to how a rabbi thinks. He brought him where? He brought him to the Bet Knesset, to the synagogue. He said, come, I believe you. One last question. Show me where you used to sit. And of course, the guy couldn't answer. And it was found out to be that he was a phony, a charlatan. And with that, he ran back away. They got rid of him. He was a guy who tried to make believe that he was the husband, of course. And the rabbi knew that if the guy's a liar, a thief, he'll find out all the details except for the religious details. Where do you sit in shul? A thief would never care to find out. So coming back to Yosef, Yosef HaTzadik knows, my father may not believe the brothers that it's me. Maybe it's a fake Yosef, and he has all the facts straight. But there's one thing that the thief would never care to find out. What was the last sugya that you learned with your father? When Yosef tells this information to his dad, we learned last. Yaakov says, oh, so it must be really him, if he knows the last halacha that we studied together. That is the idea from how Rabbi Friend explains it based on a seemingly true story that happened a couple of centuries ago. Maybe again going back to our metaphor, Yaakov was not impressed that Yosef was still alive. So what if he's alive? If he's spiritually dead, it means nothing to me. Maybe he's in Egypt and he became an Egyptian. But when he says, Dad, I still know what we last learned together. So he saw that his son Yosef was spiritually alive. Vatihi ruach Yaakov. So then Yaakov was appeased and he was comforted. Over here, Rabbi Bahye says, Katav Ramban, when it said that the brothers told Yaakov everything, what does it mean everything? They told their dad everything? They told him that they sold him also? No. Told him the words, Samani Elokim, that God put me in charge over here, and that God really orchestrated everything, that I should wind up in Egypt, so that I should be in charge of sustaining the family during the years of famine. But not. But don't think for a minute that the brothers ever told Yaakov that they sold Yosef. Listen to this. Ki Yaakov Avinu, his opinion, Lo yada ze me'olam. Yaakov never found out that his son Yosef was sold. Never found out. Aval hashav ki haya to'eh. Really? Yaakov thought Yosef got lost. Basadeh, in the field. V'hamotim oto, and the robbers found him. They sold him to Egypt. But the brothers never confessed their sin to their father. Ve'od, furthermore, ki yivhadu pen yikalel otam. Why would they tell their father that? Their father right away may curse them, just like he cursed Reuven and Shimon and Levi for what they did. Reuven for switching the bed, Shimon and Levi for killing the entire city of Shechem. So there's no way that the brothers would dare tell their father and admit their sin to him. Gam Yosef, b'musaro ve'anvatnuto lo higid le'aviv. Not only did the brothers not tell their father, Yosef never tells his father the truth. Ve'hare'aya, the proof. Well, late next week we'll see when Yaakov, and again spoiler alert, so if you don't want to know what happens, pause the video or mute your phone for the next minute. He says, next week when Yaakov dies, the brothers come to Yosef, Vaitzavu Yosef, and they say to Yosef the following, Avicha tziva, your father Yaakov commanded before he died to forgive us. That's what the brothers say. Dad said to forgive us. Next week. Now, Ilu Yada Yaakov, if it's true that Dad wanted them to forgive him. He should have done that in his lifetime. The brothers should go and say, listen, Dad, please. He'll listen to you. You're his father. Please make sure Yosef forgives us. Why would they not do that when he's still alive? When it comes out after the fact, when it comes out after his death, it's hard to believe. Therefore, Rabbi Bahye is of the opinion, quoting again the Ramban, that Yaakov never found out. Okay, so that's one nice nugget. According to this, he never found out. Again, we found out, but Yaakov goes the rest of his life, and it's maybe a nice lesson for parents, that sometimes parents, there will be things that you will go to the grave never finding out about your own children. Deep secrets, truths about your children. And then you know what? That's maybe okay. Maybe we don't need to know everything about our kids. Maybe it's better if we don't find out all the truths. Yeah? Ignorance is bliss. Okay, fine. Next one is just a chapter later, a few psukim later, chapter 46, pasuk 4. Now again, we're going today, things that you won't hear in a sermon, which is why I think this is beautiful. And we get to share deep ideas, my friends. So, Yaakov Avinu is getting ready to go down and reunite with his son Yosef. God comes to him, which is, a perk of being one of the Avot. God comes to you and tells you things. Vayomer Elohim leYisrael. God now speaks to Israel, which is Yaakov, in a vision at night, which is how all prophets got their prophecy, except for who? Moshe, very good. So he comes to him at night, in a dream. Vayomer Yaakov, he says Yaakov, and he says Hineni. Vayomer, and God says, Anochi ha'el Elokei avicha, I am the God of your father. Don't fear going down to Egypt. Ki legoi gadol asimecha sham. I'm going to make you into a great nation. Anochi eredimcha mitzrayim. I'm going to take you down there. Va'anochi a'alcha, and I will bring you up. Gam alo, and bring you up. Ve'Yosef yashit yado alenecha. Yosef will place his hand on your eyes. Again, very deep stuff over here. According to the Midrash, he was telling him that Yosef is going to put his hand on your eyes literally and teach you the secret of Shema, which is a speech, which we don't have time for right now, but that's a speech in itself. Maybe, likely, it could be your rabbi in your synagogue will deliver a sermon, just a possibility, on these words that Yosef will teach Yaakov the secret of Shema Yisrael. Why does Yosef have to teach Yaakov? How could it be that Yosef, the son, is teaching the dad? But again, I don't want to go into that right now. I'll leave that up to your local Orthodox community synagogue rabbi. I want to discuss Rabbeinu Bahye. Rabbeinu Bahye over here, again, we're on chapter 46, Pasuk 4. Why? I'm going to read to you the Pasuk and you tell me the question. I will come with you down. And I will bring you up and I'll bring you up. Right? I just basically said the question. Why does it say bring you up twice? Anochi a'alcha gam alo. When it comes to going down to Egypt, it only says it once. I'll take you down to Egypt. But when it comes to coming up, it says I'm going to bring you up and I'll bring you up. Again, that Rashi doesn't address this. Rashi just says, I'm going to bring you up. What does that mean, I'm going to bring you up? Simply, Hiftiho, he promised, Liyot nikvar ba'aretz. I promise that you'll be buried in the land of Israel. Okay, which is, by the way, very interesting halachic question. If somebody lives outside of Israel and they want to be buried in Israel, unfortunately, we had in the synagogue just yesterday 3 deaths just from our, in the community. Sometimes they happen when it rains it pours, right? So, people pass away, and a lot of times in the will they want to be taken to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. And there's interesting halachic, believe it or not, literature, essays on A, is this allowed? Okay, fine. Let's say it is allowed. It's easy, fine. B, how much should one spend extra to be buried in Israel? Is one allowed to collect tzedakah to bury someone in Israel? Yeah? These are interesting questions. They all come up. How far should one go? Today going to Israel is a big expense. Should one put that expense on their children? If you have the money and you want to, are you allowed to do that? Even if it's for yourself, are you allowed to? Maybe not. I don't know. And then let's say you don't have the money. Are you allowed to impose that financial burden on your children? So anyways, these are interesting questions. But you see, one of the sources is this pasuk. Yaakov Avinu says, God promises him that you're going to come back to be buried in Israel. Okay. We do find certain Gedolim that didn't go to be buried in Israel, even though maybe could have. And I'm not here to tell you the halacha and all of that. Look it up, read more into it. Ask your LOR, local Orthodox rabbi. But either way, Rabbeinu Bahye, let's go back over here. God says, Anochi eredim Mitzrayma, I'm going to take you down. What does that mean? I'm going to take you down. God promised him that he's going to be with him. He's going to be with him. He's going to protect him. And I'm going to bring you up. Ramaz lo sheikaber be'eretz Yisrael. I'm going to bring you up to Israel to be buried. Why is it called up to Israel? It's not just because it's north, but it's actually geographically higher. Gevoha mikol ha'aratzot. Interesting. But does he mean it literally? Does he mean it, again, spiritually higher? Either way, let's move on. Vehosiv gam alo. What does it mean the second time, and I'll take you up again? Says Rabbeinu Bahye, Ki misham yit'ale be'aliyah acheret eliona le'or be'or ha'chayim. And then from there, you're going to go up again to eternal life. So 2 going ups. 1 going up to Israel to be buried, and then again another going up to be in Olam Haba. And furthermore, it's possible lefaresh bekefel ha'aliyah ki hu haftaha lezar'o, that God was not only promising Yaakov but also his descendants, sheyigalem, that he's going to redeem them after this exile, veya'ale otam, and bring them up to Eretz Yisrael. V'hashiyu mushavim, and after they're settled in Israel, Be'eretz Yisrael, which is where really the main crux of the mitzvot can be performed and observed. Iftiham be'aliyah heret, he promised them another type of going up, which is to Olam Haba, which is again the same promises that God was giving Yaakov individually, which is Israel and Olam Haba. He was also promising to all of his descendants that they're going to go up to Israel and they're going to go to Olam Haba. This is what we say, Kol Yisrael Yesh lahem helek la'olam haba. All of Israel has a portion in the world to come. Vehu dabar Bil'am mekatreg shel Yisrael shehoda al korho. This is really what Bil'am admits to against his will. And he saw when Bil'am gives his prophecy. Remember Bil'am, the guy, the anti-Semite who tried to curse us. He ends up praising us. What does he say? Tamot nafshi mot yesharim. Let my death be like theirs. Uti ahariti kamohen, let my end be like theirs. What does that mean, let my end be like theirs? My death, I get it, I want to die like them. But what does it mean to have an end like them? He is hinting, Ramaz, she'en bechol ha'akum nohale gan eden ki im Yisrael. Bil'am over here is hinting to the fact that akum, that the idol worshippers do not inherit olam haba, only Israel. Now, I just want to pause for a minute. Seems to be that he's saying that if you're a non-Jew, you don't get Olam Haba. But I don't think we have to say that. And secondly, there are many commentaries that actually explicitly say that the Goyim do inherit Olam Haba. Hacham Ovadia as an example, if you want to look it up on this Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, he says, Kol Yisrael, the word Kol is coming to include even Umot HaOlam, even nations of the world. And he quotes many sources over there that the Goyim do inherit Olam Haba if they're worthy. I think what Rabbeinu Bahye here means to say that the Goyim do not get Olam Haba, he's not saying Goyim in general, he's specific. He says Akum. Akum is Ovdei Kochavim Umazalot. Idol worshippers don't get Olam Haba. But righteous non-Jews, we believe, at least many believe, that they do get Olam Haba. I don't think Rabbeinu Bahye here is forced into a corner to have to agree to see that Goyim do not have Olam Haba. Maybe it's possible to also fit him with those that hold that they do. But either way, this is, again, another important Rabbeinu Bahye. God is going to bring them up and bring them up again. And he goes over here into Kabbalah, where he says it's the Shekhinah and it's the letter Hey. We've spoken about the letter Hey in the past, by the way. So if you want to add this to your index, the letter Hey is 5 and it's the Shekhinah, and it's also 5. Everything, he goes on and showing you everything that happened in Egypt was in 5, and the Yad, the hand of God, was at Yam Suf, and 5 fingers is a hand, and 5 brings destruction, and it's 5 more years of famine after he got there. A lot of 5s. Anyways, a lot of 5s. I don't want to go into that right now. But this is again another beautiful Rabbeinu Bahye. Moving on to another one. Chapter 46, Pasuk 12. Not too far down from this. We go now where the Pasuk tells us all the people that went down to Egypt. How many descendants went down to Mizrahi? Anyone know? Altogether? How many people go down to Egypt? Pasuk says 70. And then it starts listing to us their names. Reuven and his sons, and Shimon and his sons, and Levi. And then it says, Ubnei Yehuda, the sons of Judah, Er ve'onan, ve'shela, va'feretz, va'zarah. What's the problem here? Problem is, if you do the math, you only get to 70 if you include Er and Onan. You ever wonder this? Er ve'onan, what's the problem? How could you count them as the 70? They died already. Very good, but they are dead. Pasuk says that. Vayamot er ve'onan be'eretz Canaan. So asks Rabbeinu Bahye, Yahshov hakatuv, that the verse includes Er ve'onan shekvar metu miklal hashivim. They include the 2 sons Er and Onan amongst the 70, even though they already are deceased. V'zei teima. But that can be shekvar metu, because they died already. How could you include them in those coming down to Egypt if they're not alive? Now, what do you think Rabbeinu Bahye is going to answer? If you've been a consistent listener to these classes, we have given already the answer in the past. Not the answer, but based on a different Rabbeinu Bahye, you'll know the answer very easily. Very good. TEA. Let's see that inside. But of course, this is not a question if you know if you follow the Kabbalists. It's something that's actually, if you ask me, he says it's explicit in Perashat Pinchas, where the pasuk says Bnei Yehuda ve'onan vayamot ve'onan be'eretz Canaan, and right away it says Vayu Bnei Yehuda. Basically, what he's saying is that if you go with the teachings of the Kabbalists that the souls can migrate, aka Gilgulim, if you believe in Gilgul, there's no question. Because Er and Onan, although they're dead, but they came back in the bodies of Peretz and Zarah, and therefore they did come down to Egypt. This is similar to, he says, what it says in Ruth. The pasuk says over there, after Oved was born, Yulad ben le Naomi. Naomi had a child. Now, did Naomi have a child? Who had a child? Ruth had a child. But, says Rabbeinu Bahye, if Gilgulim that I'm telling you about are true, which according to him they are, then there's no question. Because actually, Naomi's two sons died, Machlon and Kilion died, and they didn't have children. So when Oved is born, it's actually a Gilgul of Machlon and Kilion. So she had her child again. One of her children came back to life through Gilgul, through the soul migration, in the body of Oved. Again, wild stuff, deep stuff. I hope you're writing all of this down, because these are important things to note, and you could always use them in other areas. So let's move on, my friends. We are getting short on time. Let's move on to another one. He goes into the number 70, which I don't want to go into right now. Two more. Let's do two more today. Chapter 46, Pasuk 32. Okay? Pasuk 32 tells us, Lamid Bet, that they come down to Egypt, and Yosef quickly warns his brothers and tells them, Vayomer Yosef Elehav, that I'm going to go tell Paro that you're here, and he's going to say, what do your brothers do? Ve'hanashim ro'etzon, ki anshe mikneh hayu, betonam kara v'chla shelhem eviu. If Paro asks you, what do you guys do for a living? You should tell him, your vocation is shepherds. Okay? So, okay, big deal. It's very simple why they're shepherds. Rabbeinu Bahye wants to know, what does it mean they're shepherds? First of all, not as a business for other people, but mishilahim. They're doing their own shepherding. They weren't watching other people's sheep. They were very wealthy. Okay. Why did the Shvatim pick this vocation? We actually spoke about this in the past. We spoke about it in the lecture that we gave, in the class that we gave about Yosef versus the brothers in their approach to life, in their philosophy. We spoke about why were the Avot and the Shvatim, why did they always pick shepherding? Let's see. Shnei Dvarim, two things. Number one, Yesh barevach gadol. There's a lot of profit, okay? And it's expensive to be Jewish, tuition. So, you have to have a good income, and shepherding brings you good income. Giza, halav, vladot, with the milk, and the shearings, and the children. And you don't have to work so hard, and it makes you a lot of money, which is the dream, right? Let your money work for you. Okay. Hasheni, number two. The Shvatim knew that they're going to be exiled down to Egypt. They knew it. I don't know how he knows that, but he says they knew. Because the Egyptians sacrificed to sheep, They worshipped sheep, which is also one of the zodiacs. Therefore, tafsu lahem umanut zo. They on purpose decided to be shepherds, so that their children should be used to the fact that we don't serve sheep. Actually, sheep serve us. Bowing down to a sheep would be very bizarre to the children if my whole life I've been shearing it and I've been using it to make me money. Why would I worship this animal? This animal is actually supposed to serve me and benefit me. Although today, it's interesting, you see people, although we don't have avodah zarah today, but we do have avodah money. Today people worship the dollar bill. Today people do worship, right, the coin. They live, eat, drink, they work not for the money to serve them, but they serve their money and they make money the goal. That could also be a big distraction. But either way, the avot, the shvatim, on purpose decided to be shepherds, to teach their children. It's just an animal. It's just an animal. And by working it, why would I worship this thing? Now it was ingrained in their psyche. By the way, most tzadikim and prophets, hayu ro'im. Let's go first. Who was the first shepherd in history? From what we know. No, not Abraham. Hevel. Very good. Hevel was a ro'eh tzon. Abraham. Moshe haya ro'eh. Moshe was his father-in-law's shepherd, which is every son-in-law's dream, to work for their father-in-law. Okay? And Shmuel HaNavi, Shaul, David, Kulam ro'im. They were all shepherds. V'hata'am bahem. Another reason. Kedei sheyitrahaku min hayishuv. To go away from the town. Lefishe harbe averot, because many sins. Nimshachot besibat hevrat bnei adam. It's very easy to sin when you are in company of the people of the town, like rechilut, lashon hara, shvuat sheker, peddling bad information about people, spreading lies about people, shvuat sheker, swearing. I swear, right? Think about how many times you say the word I swear when you're with your friends. That's a sin. Gilu arayot, of course, adultery, immorality, gezel, theft, hamas. All the sins that one can easily do and commit when they are in company of other people. And when a person is isolated from people, it's easier for him to stay away from sinning. So practically speaking, he says, you know why they went to be shepherds? Because it's an easier lifestyle to be righteous. The farther from the settlement, the further from sin. And he says, you know where we find this very explicitly, black and white? By Lot. Remember, Lot had to run away from Sodom because it was being destroyed. And where did he go? He said, let me go to Tzoar. Because Tzoar, he thought, is a new town. They have less sin in their bank account, less sins. And nonetheless, he was even there afraid because of the sins that the people could pull him into. And therefore, he had to run even further from Tzoar, and he went to the mountain. And it's a place that you could do hitbodedut. What's hitbodedut, my friends? Meditation. It's not a word that Rabbi Nachman invented. Rabbi Nachman made it very popular. But hitbodedut, Breslov, it's here in Rabbeinu Bahye, a few hundred years before. And hitbodedut is something that every Jew must do, to meditate. Really, in prayer, we're supposed to meditate. Meditation, look what he says. Mitbodedut lenvuah. You won't see anything that will distract you from your meditation. That's why it's so important to pray in a Beit Knesset. When you pray in a synagogue, you're not going to have distractions. You could pray, technically, if you wanted to pray out in the middle of the street. Again, if you have 10 people with a minyan. But the point is, if you wanted to pray in the street, you can. But why is it not advisable? Is because there's distractions. How are you going to meditate? How are you going to think? If you wanted to think, if you were writing a book, if you were an author, If you're trying to write a speech for your son or your daughter's wedding, go into a quiet room. You can't have distractions. You need to meditate, right? Vikvar yadata, you already know this. Many prophets used to stay away from engaging in communities. They would isolate in the desert, even without shepherds. Shepherds was the excuse, but the reason was so that they could isolate and introspect. And we find that certain prophets didn't even use the sheep; they just went. Eliyahu, Elisha, they left the whole world. They wanted to just connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And again, we saw already the Rambam that said at the end of the laws of Shemitah and Yovel that anyone really that wants to accept upon themselves the yoke of God and isolate like the Leviim used to do, etc. You see today, Baruch Hashem, certain people that they leave the world, so to speak. They bury themselves into yeshivas, into learning. Beautiful thing for a person to be able to realize that this world can be dangerous and a distraction, and to want to connect as much as they can. And you don't have to be in Kolel to do this. Even businessmen I know, they do business. Even people that are not in Kolel. And then they also have very clear times of their day that are cut out, and they bury themselves to isolate from the world, to learn, to reconnect. Beautiful, beautiful thing. My friends, one last piece today of Rabbeinu Bahye. Lama namut. The brothers, and again, just good to know this. Chapter 47. I just want to read to you the psukim. It says, Vaychakel Yosef et aviv. Yosef sustained his brothers. And there's no bread in all of Egypt because it was a very heavy famine. Yosef, Vaylaket Yosef et kol hakesef. Yosef obviously gathered all the money that people were ready to pay, right, for the produce, supply and demand. And now the people ran out of money. So they come to Yosef again. And what do? We need to eat. Lama namut. Give us bread. So Yosef says, okay, if you don't have money, pay me with your cattle. They bring their cattle. They bring susim, mikneh, tzon, mikneh bakar, hamorim. And again, he gives them food for the next year. Vatitom hashanahi, and that year's over. They come to him in the second year. He said, we don't have any money, we don't have any cattle to give you, but we're going to die. We have our bodies and our lands. So Yosef buys their land from them. And they now have food to eat. So basically Yosef owned the world. You realize. He owns the money, he owns the cattle, he owns the land. He owns the bodies, he buys them and he starts moving them all around. Kaniti etchem hayom v'et admatchem, he says, I bought you, I bought your land. Now, what happens over here when it comes to the famine? How many years did the famine last? Al derech pshat haktuvim, Rabbeinu Bahye wants to say, according to the simple interpretation. When did they run out of money? In what year? In what year did they run out of money? It says they ran out of money and they come to Yosef and they say, please, we need bread. We ran out of money. We can't buy any more bread from you with money. We don't have any money. In what year was that? He says, it has to be 5th year. In the 5th year, they ran out of money. Because how can it be that the money runs out in 1 year? You don't run out of money in 1 year. Usually, you don't have in your savings food for only 1 year. You have enough money to buy for a few years. Okay, he doesn't bring a proof, but he just says it just doesn't make sense logically. So they run out of money in the 5th year. And then they came and they gave him their cattle in the 6th year. But then what does it mean that at the 2nd year they gave him all of their land? What do you mean the 2nd year? Vayavohu elav vashana hashenit Zohi Hashana Shvi'it. When the pasuk says they came in the second year, it means the seventh. How'd you get from 2 to 7? Which is the second year of the 6th year when they came to him by giving him the cattle. So according to Rabbeinu Bahye, simply the famine lasted 7 years, and he works out the numbers. Okay. Derech Midrash, according to the rabbis, Lo hayu ela shte shanim ra'av. There was only 2 years of famine. So, according to that, Nitzarech Lefaresh will force to explain that Vayavo el Yosef, when they came to Yosef in the second year, it's literally the second year of famine. Why were there only 2 years of famine? Because the moment Yaakov stepped down and foot in Egypt, the famine ended. He brought beracha. The famine ended. What's the problem, my friends, with this interpretation? Look at this. Im Tomar, you're going to ask, if the famine only lasted 2 years, what's the obvious question? Im ken, if so, yahshedu anshe ha'aret liyosef bechukhmato. Now everyone retroactively is going to accuse Yosef about his interpretation. You lied the whole time. You were lying so that we make you viceroy. You interpreted the dream 7 and 7. But it was not 7 and 7, it was 7 and 2. Has Yosef going to now explain the fact that his interpretation of Paro's dream didn't come true? If I'm Paro, I fire him. Oh, you liar. It's only 2. Right? Hatshuva bazeh. Ked ahare mot aviv. Says Rabbeinu Bahye, after Yaakov died, Hazar hara'av leyoshno. The famine went back to how it was for 5 more years. Meaning, Rabbeinu Bahye says, even if you hold like the rabbis in the Gemara, in the Midrash, that the famine lasted for only 2 years until Yaakov came, but it resumed. It didn't end. It was put on pause. And then it resumed when he died. And with this, everything fits nicely. It was only 2 years, and the interpretation was 7. It didn't say 7 consistently. Yosef never said to Paro, you're going to have 7 years of famine consistently. It said 7 years of famine, and it was. Again, I'm not sure what that conversation maybe looked like. If you think about, after 2 years, the famine ends, everyone comes and says, hey, Yosef, you lied. It's only 2 years. What did Yosef say? He say, wait, you'll see it's going to happen the other 5 when my father dies. What did he say to them? In that moment of conversation, how did he convince them to have patience to prove that his interpretation was right, that when his father dies, the 5 years will continue? Okay. But anyways, he brings over here already from the Gemara, Masechet Tosefta. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Kevan shemet Yaakov Avinu hazar hara'av leyoshno. This is already brought down in the Tosefta. When Yaakov died, the famine resumed. And that's what it means, Vayivarech Yaakov et Paro. When he came down, he blesses Paro. What did he bless him with? Shenimne'u shnei ra'av. He blessed him that the famine should be paused. But Af al piken shalmu ahare mitato. When he died, it resumed. Rabbi Shimon says, "Whoa, enze kiddush Hashem. That's not going to be a nice kiddush Hashem. That's not going to make the Jewish people look, nice. Shedevrei tzadikim kayamim behayehem ubtelim lahar mitatan. It's not going to look so good if the tzaddik only makes sure to bring bracha in his lifetime, and then when he dies, the bracha ceases. How does that work? You're going to only end the famine so long that you're alive, and the second you die, that's not a kiddush Hashem. A real tzaddik takes care of the people even after he's dead. Amar Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, but Rabbi Elazar says, actually, I agree to the first rabbi, not my father. Shezeh kiddush Hashem. Actually, it's a bigger kiddush Hashem. Shekozman shetzadikim ba'olam bracha ba'olam nistakul min ha'olam nistakal bracha min ha'olam. Actually, it is a kiddush Hashem. When people see that a tzaddik brought the bracha, the moment the tzaddik is gone, the bracha is gone, they see a direct correlation to the life of the tzaddik. If the bracha continues after his death, they may not attribute the bracha to the tzaddik. Either way, this is an interesting machloket. I wonder, and we'll end with this. I wonder if this machloket between Rabbi Shimon and his son Rabbi Eliezer can tie to the machloket in Masechet Shabbat, when Rabbi Shimon hid in a cave for 12 years with his son. And after they came out, they started burning everything, and then they went back in the cave, and then when they came out, Rabbi Shimon was more tolerant, and he gave people the benefit of the doubt if he saw them working. His son Rabbi Eliezer was still a little bit of maybe a zealot, and he would burn everywhere with his eyes, right? Like Gemara says over there. So you see, maybe, I don't know if the two tie in together. Interesting food for thought. But either way, we'll stop over here, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Again, today's class is sponsored for the Refuah Shema of all of Israel. Today's class is also sponsored by Abe and Elise Tabelli. Leilu Nishmat Mordechai David ben Elise Ruach Adonai Tanihenu Began Eden. Hu v'chol b'nei Yisrael shechuvim imo b'chlamim v'zadichot v'chen yhi ratzon v'nomar amen. Azak Baruch. Everyone, want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom. And God willing, we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.